Many of you Star Wars fans don't have any idea about how many of your favorite characters could have looked like in the Star Wars universe. So in this video, we will have a look at the concept art of many famous Star Wars characters. Let's begin with Darth Maul. The Phantom Menace introduced us to Darth Maul, the apprentice of Darth Sidious, who stood out in a number of ways. Darth Maul possessed horns on top of his head, a lightsaber with 2 blades, and skin that was both black and red. Having said that, Darth Maul's appearance in The Phantom Menace could have been drastically altered. Ian McCaig, an artist, reportedly received the instruction from George Lucas to create an image from your darkest nightmare, and this is what he came up with. It's a long-haired Darth Maul that we didn't get to see anywhere. Next, we have Yoda, the Garden Gnome. Yoda had an important role to play in The Empire Strikes Back. Not only was he said to be a wise and powerful Jedi, but he is the one responsible for training the hero Luke. While fans have come to know Yoda as a small green creature, he almost turned out looking like a small garden gnome. It would have been truly strange to see Luke carry around a Jedi who looked like this on his back, but thankfully this never happened. Next, we have a frightening Chewbacca. Wookies can no doubt be scary if you make them angry, but they almost looked horrifying all the time. While a Wookiee now looks like a giant walking carpet according to Princess Leia, they originally had a lot less body hair. They also originally had pointed ears, glowing eyes, and a lot of facial hair. While this concept art wouldn't be used for Chewbacca, it was used to create the character Garazeb Aurelius and the other Lassats in Star Wars Rebels. Next is a female Luke. At one point during the development of Star Wars, Luke was considered to be female, as seen in this early concept art of the heroes. This group shot depicts the original designs for Luke, Han Solo, Chewbacca, C-3PO, and R2-D2. It's also worth mentioning that Solo is seen wearing a cape and wielding a lightsaber, since sabers still weren't designated to the Jedi and Sith yet. As if the characters on the ground weren't captivating enough, the sky is also filled with a spectacle of its own, showing what appears to be the Death Star along with other spaceships. Next, we have Count Dooku. After Asajj Ventress was passed up as a villain, artist Dermot Power created this concept art of Count Dooku, who would be played by Christopher Lee. Dooku's appearance was altered drastically before the wardrobe department created the costume. This concept art makes Count Dooku almost look like some type of sea captain rather than a Sith Lord. If this costume would have gone through, it would have not only looked strange, but it also would have felt out of place, since no other Sith has ever dressed like this. Next, we have a bald Kylo Ren. After dueling with Rey at the end of The Force Awakens, Kylo Ren had a deep slash across his face from a lightsaber wound. While The Last Jedi featured Kylo with a scar to go nicely with his luscious locks, he almost didn't have his iconic long hair. As this artwork shows, Kylo was almost bald in The Last Jedi. Rian Johnson got a lot of criticisms for The Last Jedi, but he more than likely would have gotten a lot of hate if he decided to chop all of Kylo Ren's hair, since it would have been such a drastic difference. Next is General Grievous. Darth Vader and Emperor Palpatine may have been the true villains of Episode 3, but General Grievous certainly was an enemy of the Jedi. Classified as a general of the droid army and a warlord, Grievous was almost completely cybernetic. He collected the lightsabers of the Jedi who he took down and even wielded 4 at once during the movie. This concept art by Warren Fu depicts a much sleeker version of Grievous in clean white armor. He is also wielding a shield and some sort of an electropole. Needless to say, Obi-Wan would have had a much harder time shooting his heart if he had this upgraded armor. Next, we have a Sith Stormtrooper. There are multiple characters present within this piece of concept art, but the most prominent is the Stormtrooper. The trooper's armor pretty much looks like it does in the movie, but what's odd and pretty obvious is that this trooper is wielding a lightsaber. In the original drafts of Star Wars, lightsabers were not exclusive to Jedi and Sith, so this explains why an ordinary stormtrooper is holding one in this concept art design. It's also interesting that the saber has no color, so the mythos behind the kyber crystals probably was not invented when this concept art was created. Next, we have the concept art where Kylo Ren is missing an arm. For some fans, it was a dream come true when they saw Darth Vader's burnt helmet in the trailer for Star Wars The Force Awakens. It is later revealed that Kylo Ren, the grandson of Darth Vader, is in possession of the decrepit helmet. While this concept art shows a scene that was played out on screen, Kylo Ren looks very different here. This version of Kylo Ren has a prosthetic arm as well as a completely different helmet and a chest plate. I am not going to discuss if this version is better or not than what we got, because personally, I like both of these designs. Next is the showdown between Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader. One of the most famous scenes within The Empire Strikes Back is the epic showdown between Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader on Cloud City. Not only is it a stunning lightsaber battle, but it is also the moment when Luke loses his hand and discovers the truth of his parentage. Darth Vader's concept art looks pretty much the same, except for the blaster on his hip, but Luke looks very different from the final version. Luke is depicted wearing a face mask and oxygen tank. While the concept art looks intriguing, it would have been hard for Mark Hamill to get emotions across to viewers if they couldn't see his face. And this might be the reason this concept art remained unused. Next, we have Jar Jar Binks. Fans waited 16 years for a new Star Wars movie. However, when The Phantom Menace hit the big screen, it was not what fans were expecting. While The Phantom Menace gave fans some fascinating characters, Jar Jar Binks was not one of them. In fact, Jar Jar is easily one of the most hated characters in the Star Wars universe, and it's not hard to see why. This concept art for Jar Jar makes him appear even sillier than he does in the actual movie, which is a hard task to accomplish. And Star Wars fans are definitely glad that this version of Jar Jar was scrapped. Next we have a different crew in the Star Wars The Rogue One. Rogue One stood as the first Star Wars story for Disney. The movie centered around a group of rebels who tried to steal the plans for the Death Star. The film featured stars such as Felicity Jones, Diego Luna, Donnie Yen, and Ben Mendelsohn, among many others. While the movie still has a big team of rebels, this concept art portrays them completely differently than they appeared on screen. All of the characters have considerable differences, but among the most noticeable is K2SO, who looks like a black version of C-3PO. Next is Blonde Han Solo. Han Solo has a very iconic look in the original trilogy, consisting of a white shirt, a vest, and blue pants with a holster belt. Han's look is memorable and quite easy to cosplay. However, Han Solo's appearance could have looked very different if George Lucas would have gone with Ralph McQuarrie's original look for Solo. This concept sketch depicts Han as he is about to draw his blaster. However, he looks a little different than usual. Han appears to have a brown vest with a blue shirt and grey pants. Not to mention, he also has a necklace, goggles, and blonde hair. Next, we have a very tall Emperor Palpatine. One of the most memorable scenes in Return of the Jedi came when the Emperor uses his Force lightning to electrocute Luke Skywalker. Darth Vader is forced to choose between remaining loyal to his master and saving his son's life. This concept art depicts this scene, but the Emperor looks very different. Instead of being an average height, Sidious looks incredibly tall, almost on Supreme Leader Snoke's level. Darth Sidious's eyes are also completely red, which makes him look extremely evil and menacing. Next, we have Wormlike Creatures. The prequel trilogy brought to life many species of extraordinary creatures. Some of the creature designs were better than others, but here is an example of one that never made it into the finished movie. The scene depicts what appears to be a Jedi running away from giant worm-like creatures. The giant creatures almost look like sand burrowers, only they are much larger and surrounded by ice instead of sand. This scene may not have made it into Revenge of the Sith, and this might have been for the best, since there were a lot of other things going on in the movie. Next, we have the Emperor's Volcano lair. The set design used for Luke and Vader's final battle is not easily forgotten. The lightsaber battle takes place in front of the Emperor while they are all on the Death Star, but things could have been very different. This concept art shows Luke entering the Emperor's lair, which appears to be in a cave that might have been hidden within a volcano. It's also worth mentioning that the Emperor is wearing all white even though the Sith usually wear black clothing. Next we have Battle Droids. While the original trilogy contained Stormtroopers, the Phantom Menace had battle droids to protect the Trade Federation. A battle droid was no match for a Jedi, but when they attacked in numbers, it was a different story. This concept art shows the final form of a battle droid, as well as two other sketches on the left. Love or hate the prequels, the battle droids have a signature look that could have been drastically altered if either of the two sketches on the left would have made it into the final stage of development. Next, we have the Battle of Mustafa with monsters. The Battle of Mustafa was crucial to the plot of Revenge of the Sith and was an important factor for character development. The battle between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker had been in the making for a long time. It took place on the fiery planet of Mustafa. Having two powerful Jedi battle it out was a spectacle enough, especially since they were surrounded by lava and fire. However, throwing in giant creatures such as this one shown in the concept art probably would have been seen as too much, and probably that's why this idea was scrapped. So, that's all for this video, and if you guys enjoyed it, then make sure to subscribe.